Thanks, and it's a pleasure to be here to talk about cloud security. Maybe we've heard about various threats, various building blocks, various things that you should do or what to be aware of in the cloud. I'll try to actually give you some tools to do that in the public cloud. In the public cloud, it's really a shared responsibility. So it is not just the cloud provider, but it's cloud provider and you together that make the overall security of what is the infrastructure in the cloud. Like we've heard about breaches in the previous speech, about certain things that were exposed. Some of them were like in the AWS cloud being data exposed. It was not due to the fact that AWS did something wrong. It was actually due to the fact that the customer of AWS did not do fully his part in the equation. So you, as a customer, when you go to the public cloud, you absolutely need to take care of your part. Be that IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. You have a certain amount of controls based on what kind of things you deploy in the cloud in your disposal. And actually, in a lot of the cases, you have a lot more controls and tools at your disposal than in your traditional data center. So what this means for you is that you actually need to have some additional thinking when you go into the cloud. We heard about challenges of shadow IT. So your business goes into the cloud and out of your normal IT control. And for that, you actually need to bring a new function in your company to have governance around what and how is being deployed into the cloud. That also, the governance means that it needs to plan and implement the controls and infrastructure and services in the cloud so that the cloud itself can function, and moreover, your nice solutions that are being developed and served to your customers, they have the necessary backbone to rely on and to have the necessary tools to take care of all the other things, but most of all for you, security things. So you need to have the baseline services for vulnerability scanning. You need to have a solution for ensure that there are no vulnerable components in the applications and so forth. Then what comes after the cloud level is the solution. Obviously, you can bring your existing solutions on the cloud in a lift and shift manner. But if you want to be truly cloud native, then you gradually increase the cloud awareness of your application and solution components so that they take advantage of the platform capabilities. So initially, if you are only driven by cost and speed, obviously you can bring the application in a lift and shift fashion, but the more you evolve, you should think about what kind of tooling is available in the platform that your application can take advantage and then control the cloud platform to make it even more secure. And this is a key decision point for you when you select your components. You need to select those kind of components that are able to use APIs or also components that have an API so that they can be controlled by other parts of the function or the solution. So that this is not just a simple application doing something, but instead the application is aware of what is like a normal behavior in the application and what is not. And if the application doesn't have any tools to do or any counterpart to do something about that anomaly that the application is detecting, you are not taking full advantage of the platform. So take that into your mind as well when you move things into the cloud. And you need to orchestrate this in the governance, meaning that initially your applications are not that cloud aware, but as they evolve and as more services come onto the platform, then you have ability to put more stuff into the cloud as well and more confidential stuff in the cloud. Of course, you need to take care of the what is the classification of the data. Initially, your classification might require certain controls and you don't have them in the cloud platform yet. but as things evolve and you bring more controls on the cloud platform, then you can bring more things into the cloud. The cloud itself is kind of a different kind of ball game as compared to your on-premises data center. So everything is kind of delivered as code. So the whole infrastructure is code. It creates all the components, meaning the networking, IDS, IPS, vulnerability scanning components, and so forth. But also the monitoring components. So what do you monitor in the cloud? So how do you analyze your IPS logs? How do you analyze your antivirus logs, and so forth? So you monitor not just kind of also in kind of direct things like IDS, IPS, but also the kind of resource consumption. So you have a different kind of monitoring that can give you kind of trends of what is the behavior of the application. It's easier for you to spot anomalies in your solution when you have consolidated view of everything in the application. And that monitoring is always consistent because it's done by code automatically for all the components in your solution. Operations, you obviously need operations, but of course, that is again delivered as code. So the operations like adding new customers, removing customers, encrypting things, like functions like GDPR, you need to be able to have a right to forget. So you can create an automated tool that will delete all the personal identifiable data of any of your customer when you have a tool for that. So that's part of the kind of tooling when it comes to security. And all of these kind of, you need to make them automated, an integral part of the application, so that when the user clicks the forget me button in your solution, then it actually launches the respective tool to take care of that action from the end user. So this is totally kind of different where you have operational people. You build automation instead of manual work in the cloud. And like in the previous, I said, code does everything. So where does security become into picture? So that moves more and more into your code review. So you need to kind of ensure that whatever controls, whatever monitoring, whatever operations you put into the cloud, they actually are addressing the things that you find in your threat analysis. So you heard in the previous speakers talk about you need to be aware of your risks and threats and so forth. So these are then the tools and what kind of security responsibles they need to be kind of ensuring that these code contain the respective controls, respective tools, respective monitoring, so that all the security functions actually have a means and opportunity to do their job also in the public cloud. So this also kind of means a change for your security personnel in a sense. No longer kind of you need necessarily the top-notch security expert that's able to pinpoint what is the actual vulnerability signature in a log file. Instead, you need to be able to have a person who is able to read the code and ensure that the detection mechanism of that vulnerability is part of the monitoring code. So the ambition level of your security personnel goes one notch higher. Instead of just monitoring manually, you need to have people who are able to code those detection mechanisms and verify that those detection mechanisms have been built into your solutions. And this is the kind of platform level thing that is new in the cloud. So you have, how does this work? Oh, sorry. Oh, never mind. On the platform, you need to collect platform level logs. So the platform level logs, of course, need to be independent of the target platform. So typically in the cloud, you have solutions running in segregated infrastructure, and then you have what we call an audit account or an audit subscription that collects platform level log information. And that is typical kind of the kind of worst case scenario in the cloud is that you lose the encryption keys or access keys to your cloud platform where your solutions are. And that's of course the crown jewel that was mentioned also earlier, your solution account. That's where the data is, and that's what the bad guys are after. So in order for you to protect that, you need to monitor what is happening in those crown jewel accounts. And when you do that by actually segregating all the API access logs in a totally different infrastructure and immutable in a sense that the target where the audit data is collected only has ability to add stuff in there, not to even read. So in our standard platform automation, we actually create encryption keys into the audit target. We grant right to use those for encryption, but only encryption, not decryption. So the audit targets are able to encrypt log data, but not read after they have kind of delivered the log data. And that's why it's kind of also on the platform there's a capability that you can't change the log files either. So it's encrypted, unchangeable, so then you can process that, find out what's happening in the platform on those logs, and when you find anomalies, then you can press the control button to stop the anomaly from going any further. And of course, for the investigation and reporting purposes, you need to have your retention and archiving in place for all your log data, so that your logs are collected, encrypted, and recycled based on the requirements that are set you by the kind of authorities, your business compliance requirements, and so forth. And all of this you need to kind of put in place through that automation. The operations and monitoring is similar, and that's why I wanted to show you this picture. It's almost the same picture as the last one. And this is where you kind of the power of cloud and code comes into play. When everything is code, you can just cut and paste the code with a little bit different parameters, and you have the exact same function not happening on the cloud platform level, but now happening on the solution level. So with the solution operations, you can do exactly similar pattern, but you have different parameters. In solution, you are interested more about the performance of the solution, what are the kind of bottlenecks, what are the trends of the solution, maybe not so much about the security as a self. But you need to collect the kind of data in order for you to develop the application. And then for that, you just add a new piece which is kind of analyzing the log data from your requirement perspective. What are the key things that you are developing now in the application? You process that and you create reports and you put stuff in your backlog so that you are indeed able to kind of evolve your solution. And then bring security in the picture. So you have Security Operations Center, and that will do the baseline security services, antivirus, IPS, IDS, anti-malware, all those nice things. And also, of course, firewalling and controlling. But does it in a cloud-native fashion, meaning that when your application detects that there are some strange anomalies happening in the solution, the application can put that information in the log files, and if they are frequently enough in the log files, then the solution automation will change your web application firewall to prevent that malicious user from contacting your server again. And that will be logged, and you have information about all the auditing collected by the security operations, what is happening in your solution. So that was kind of single or kind of couple of cloud examples. What happens when you do multiple clouds? In there, the key picture is that you have central role-based access control. Not typically, this is now for the code pipeline. So you don't have identities in the servers or that kind of things. Instead, you have access rights to create those controls, create those tools in the code. So instead of doing server identities, you give rights to modify your code and deploy your code based on the roles that you have. And you ensure that the code is indeed reviewed and has proper controls in there. You're able to detect that if there are two dangerous combinations, you have identities that have too much power, they are able to decrypt stuff and encrypt stuff, delete servers, and so forth. You can detect that, build rules for that to prevent the system even creating such a scenario. The other aspect is the security incident stuff. You need to collect it on the reports only. The fact that kind of everything is automated and analyzed already in the platform means that you don't need to collect it anymore centrally. Instead, the application and the cloud platform can collect all the logging and data. All you need to do is collect the reports and do correlation if you find kind of like an identity being breached in one platform, so then you can potentially mitigate that identity breach on the other platform if you have shared that identity between two different cloud platforms. And of course, what was particularly kind of in the banking sector, you have central compliance requirement. You need to collect the reports and particularly the evidence of all the automation that you have created. And this is kind of a little bit different compared to a traditional data center where they are asked, did you go through your log files? Did you analyze what happened in your application? Instead, you now provide reports that this is our automation analyzed all the logs. These are the respective actions that happened because of the analysis. So it is a different level of compliance reporting, and you sometimes might need to educate the auditor that, okay, we don't manually have a review meeting for these kind of going through the log files. Instead, we go through that our code did what it was supposed to do. It found out the threat cases that we identified and acted according to the plan that we had put in place. And also, kind of the other aspect is that you need to have code in place to verify that the pipeline actually what pipeline delivered in the cloud is in the cloud. There is nothing else except what the pipeline delivered. So that is additional thing, kind of you need to check the status of the cloud, check that it matches the CI/CD pipeline. So, as said, a lot of change is needed. Executives are pushing for more developer productivity, faster operations, security enforcement. So this is kind of, you need to do and enable this through automation for your business customers, because otherwise you will have that shadow IT going wild. And this is where the governance that you put in place, the faster you can do the governance, the faster and more secure services you can have in the platform, the less opportunities for your business to start doing the shadow IT. So, and as an example, there was also kind of patching requirement. One solution that we in Nordcloud, for example, create, instead of patching, we try to avoid patching. That's a little bit controversy in a sense because we actually don't patch. We always, when there is a new vulnerable fixed in a package, we detect that from all the software repositories that there is a new package with the vulnerability fixed. Instead of patching the servers, we will recreate the servers and we will deploy the whole solution stack automatically with unobtrusive or undisruptive means on the platform. So we create a whole new infrastructure. We have built-in health mechanisms in place that detect that the application is working correctly. Once all those checks have been satisfied, then we move the traffic over to the new instance with the new fresh built solution components that have no vulnerabilities in them. The nice side effect of this is that you don't need to carry the garbage from the history with you because you build everything from scratch, and like everybody knows, the first thing that some support guy asks you, have you tried to reinstall things? Well, we do it every time. So our recommendation, build the cloud platform and start evolving it. Put the basic controls, basic minimum services that you want in there, and then start evolving that. Then you can modernize the application to take advantage of the services in the platform and start evolving the whole process where you both evolve the platform's controls and the application, and you do that in a fashion where you take also advantage of what the platform provider is doing. So with that, thank you on my behalf. It's been a pleasure being here. If you want to know more about Nordcloud, we are here. Thank you.